Everybody sing without instrument. Everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. It's 4:30 in the morning here. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana.
Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana.
Yamuna Tira Manachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
Gopi Chana Vallabha Giri Varadari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari.
Yashoda Nandana Raja Jana Randana.
Shodhanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana.
Yamunatira Manachari.
Atira Vanachari.
Yamunatira Manachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
Shri Radha Madhava Astasaki ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Chandraya Mandir ki jai.
Jai.
Narayanam Namaskrityam
Narayanam Namaskrityam
Naram Shaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Tacho Tato Jayamudirayat
Tato Jaya Mudirayet.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So if you want to go back home, back to Godhead, you can just stop eating and chant this mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, and within 3 weeks, you'll be back with Krishna. Or you can stop drinking water, and within 3 days, you'll be back with Krishna. Or you can stop breathing air, and within 3 minutes, you'll be back with Krishna. So we have attachments. Yes. And chanting Hare Krishna. When Srila Prabhupada came to San Francisco, our temple in Berkeley, which is, part of the San Francisco area, but it's actually across the bay. Temple's there, and it takes up 6 city lots, a very big piece of property. So I heard from Srila Prabhupada's lips. Now you can hear from my lips. Yeah. Anybody who chants Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu, Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivas, Hari Gaura Bhaktivinoda, and follows it with Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, has achieved the perfection of life. But if you want to preach, you should probably read my books. So we could add also to accelerate the process of chanting Hare Krishna. Then we need to read Prabhupada's books. Upadeshamrita, Prabhupada says, in this movement, we require everyone to rise early by 4 o'clock in the morning, 10 Mangal Artik, morning service, perform kirtan, read Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. Yeah. So there it is, without Brahma Muhurta, process of Archana Kirtan, Swadhyay, we can't maintain enthusiasm. And that's our fundamental vow. The Upadeshamrita Prabhupada says, everybody who chant enthusiastically. We have to chant 16 enthusiastic rounds a day, avoiding the 4 illicit habits. And then we're guaranteed step by step to rise to the platform of Paramahamsa. But I was saying, in our condition, we can't remain enthusiastic. On the other hand, if we are purified, connected to Krishna, Siddha Swarup, and then chant Hare Krishna, and it automatically manifests itself as Shastra, scripture, like that, as we're reaching out to people. So with that, we're continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, the essence of all the Vedic literatures. And we were describing some of its glories yesterday, that there's no other book like Srimad Bhagavatam. It's in a class by itself. Srimad Rao read all the Vedic literatures. Very nice person. He said Srimad Bhagavatam is in a class by itself. So we're all the way up to the 9th canto. We're standing at we're hearing Krishna playing his flute, calling the gopis to the Ras Leela, and we hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, and other angels and celestial beings are maybe going to try and also run through the forest and watch through the bushes. So we're in the 9th canto. And now we're on chapter 10, 8, 9, 10. We're discussing, where did we start all this? I guess it's more or less Mara Sagar. And his son was, I can't remember what it was now, Asamjasa and Angshuman. And then several generations down to Bhagirati, who was able to bring the Ganga. And then on down, we'll see to Lord Ramachandra. So this chapter has you can see on the screen. Can you see our screen, Maharaj? Can you see the word file?
Yes, Maharaj, we can see.
Okay. So 0.98 P dash V, P dash P, P oblique V. This means that the ratio of pages to verses is that every verse almost gets a full page. Which is pretty high, A lot of this chapter, to our observation, is basically just Prabhupada, the Acharya, is just letting Sukadeva Goswami tell the story like that. And with, of course, with their beautiful, empowered translation. It's a wonderful Mahabharata, wonderful Ramayana. So go ahead. This chapter is entitled The Pastimes of the Supreme Lord Ramachandra. Okay. So as we're discussing this chapter is kind of like an overview of everything. And next chapter is specifically focusing on Ramaraja, the actual government, Daivi Varnashram Dharma, Ramchandra. So here we have a summary. This chapter, this 10th chapter, describes how Lord Ramachandra appeared in the dynasty of Katvanga. Okay, yeah. And it also describes the Lord's activities, telling how he killed Ravana and returned to Ayodhya, the capital of his kingdom. Okay. And then we all are coming here the same way. Ram Lila, birth to rule in Ayodhya. The next chapter details that rule. Okay. So then we're coming down here. And text number 1. Can you see text 1 now? How fast is it refreshing?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, it's pretty fast then. Okay, Sukadeva Goswami said, okay, the son of Maharaj Katvanga was Dirgabahu. His son was the celebrated Maharaj Raghu. From Maharaj Raghu came Aja. And from Aja was born. I wonder if that's a joke. I wonder if there's so many subtle things here, because Aja means unborn. But Prabhupada says from Aja was born the great personality Maharaj Dasarat. One time our good disciple and guru, Radhika Raman Das, was talking about the depth of the Bhagavatam in one class. And we're discussing it. He made the point that when the 4 Kumaras want to enter Vaikuntha, but they're too short, like that, too small. It's interesting. Then Jai and Vijay say you can't go in, and then they criticize Jai and Vijay you're seeing duality where there is no duality. So that's the translation, but he says that it's a more subtle, in another context. And that context is that they are saying all the words that are being used there, this is the Sangha, the place, everything else, all relate to the family. For example, it doesn't say house, it says home, like that, and so on. So they're saying really that with our family, hey, we're all family members. You won't let us come in our home, our house. So there's a much more appealing, much more impulsive character to it. As I'm reading Prabhupada's books, reading Upadeshamrita to the bone, like that, going through it, I come to the observation that there's no space in Prabhupada's presentation. You can find out how every sentence leads to every other sentence. His consciousness is continuous, and after that, you start to find out it's intense. He's every word, every phrase, every perspective. We're finding so much perspective and depth to it. The word choice is very specific. The rhythm, the order, the grammar, so many things like that. And then 3 things have to happen: continuous, intense, and broad. And that everything is there included. It's holographic like that. So our consciousness has to be like that too. And if we're focusing on any one of the limbs of Vishnu, we have to realize how that's connected to the whole body. And if we focus on the whole body, we can't forget that it's composed of limbs. So here we are with Aja. From Aja was born. From Aja, Maharaj Dasarat. Okay. So who knows why he's called Dasarat? It's a pretty easy question if you're born in India. Don't be shy. Go ahead and unmute your microphone.
He can fight 10 people at one time and win them?
He fights 10 directions at one time, I heard. So there's the 4 cardinal directions: north, south, east, west. The ones in between, and up and down. So this gentleman was unapproachable, like fire. Okay, so it was like he had 10 chariots all going like that. Okay, and then after that, that's as far as this verse goes. So there's so many names for Ram. We tossed that in here, and one, of course, is Raghupati. Raghupati. Of course, there's a Raghu dynasty from the celebrated Maharaj Raghu. So he's Raghupati, the husband, the protector of the Raghupati dynasty. Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram Patita Pavana Sitaram 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 Dasaratanandana Sitaram Janaki Balaba. This is Radha Lanka Vijaya, he conquers Lanka. Ravanari, Murari, Keshari, he's the enemy, the destroyer of Ravana. Ayodhyapati, Sita Abhiram, he's the enjoyer of Sita. Sita wants to be enjoyed. Radharani wants to be enjoyed, so she blows up, boom, and becomes 8 more girls. Who can sing, dance, cook, argue, and be a psychotherapist for Krishna, all at the same time. Lakshman Agraja, he took birth before Lakshman. Took birth before Lakshman, or something like that. Lakshman Agraja. Yeah, okay. And of course, Hanumatpresaka. He's also another name for Ram. Yeah, we kind of like that name. Of Hanuman, the dispatcher of a message. He who sent Hanuman with a message. Okay. So that, of course, relates to all the other messengers. We got the messenger who delivered the message to Rukmini, and who became, I think, who arranged the marriage for Vishnu Priya, like that. And of course, you've got Uddhava. So I guess one name for Krishna would be Uddhavat Prashak. Uddhavat Prashak. And was Uddhava meditating on Hanuman's service when he was going to Vrindavan? And he was thinking, Hanuman, it's a difficult job I have, difficult bhajan I have. So how did Hanuman do this? So any comments or questions? Any other names for Ramachandra? I'm going to toss in here. Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. Number 2. Okay, it's number 1. So number 1 establishes the dynasty. Okay. Number 2, being prayed for by the demigods, the supreme personality of Godhead, the absolute truth himself, directly appeared with his expansion and expansions of expansions. Their holy names were Ram, Lakshman, Bharata, Shatrughna. These celebrated incarnations thus appeared in 4 forms as the sons of Maharaj Dasarath. And I thought it was here in this purport, but as I remember, the descriptions are sometimes they are incarnations of the 4 elements that Krishna has, Vishnu has, chakra, gada, minor Shingadev here, conch, club, lotus, and chakra. Yeah. And other times there are incarnations of Vasudeva, Shankarshan, like that. But I didn't find it right away. Maybe at the end somebody can. We're reading it somewhere. Maybe it's in Hanuman's prayers. Yeah. Okay. So a couple points. One point we wanted to mention because we haven't heard too many people talking about this. But did I mention Godhead before? Have I talked about Godhead before, Maharaj, what the word means?
Not yet, Maharaj.
Okay, thank you. This is it. The nature of being 73 years old, your short-term memory falls apart, which has its advantages too. Prabhupada says old age is a good friend for a devotee because you realize you're not always going to have your teeth, you're not always going to have your eyes, you're not always going to have your mind. Prabhupada says at the time of death, they erase your face. They erase your face. So when I read that, I was this is shocking because even as you get older, the thing is changing in front of you in the mirror. You're still a little attached to it. It's my face. So Prabhupada says they erase your face, and it will never appear ever again. This is gone forever. My goodness. Yeah. So Godhead. Okay. I didn't know what this word meant, and I had this thing, I have to understand everything, Jnani. So finally I went to the little, branch library near the temple in Berkeley, California, nice library. I looked in the big dictionary they had for everybody sitting there. So the word Godhead, contextually in Western theology means the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Okay, like that. It means the Trinity, which is a big concept in Western philosophy. And so much of our philosophy, the way Prabhupada presents it, is coming, is tied in. It's adjudicated with our philosophy, with Western philosophy, to make it easily accessible. I could never understand why Prabhupada was talking about the ultimate cause, the efficient cause, and the material cause again and again. The guy, what is it called? The guy who makes the cups, the wheel, and the clay. Yeah, the potter. Yeah, you got it. The potter, the pottery wheel, and the clay. Okay. But those are terms from Aristotle. Aristotle uses the same terms. Aristotle has also got it figured out. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, one through the Muslims, and it comes back into the West through St. Thomas Aquinas, like that. And then probably went to, Scottish Churchman's College, whatever it is, and learned all these things as a formality. He had to learn them. So the etymology of the word Godhead is not head. It comes from hood. That's our English language. Like we say womanhood, manhood, childhood. And then we have godhood. So who's the supreme personality of womanhood? Okay. Radharani. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Who's the supreme personality of childhood? Balagopal. Okay, yeah. There's no child like little Gopal. So the supreme personality of Godhood, we got the Panchatattva, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivas. Okay. Lord Chaitanya, Balaram, Mahavishnu, Paramatma, Radharani, Narada Muni. Okay. Jehovah, it's interfaith dialogue. Jesus, okay. Holy Spirit, Mother Mary, and you can add Saint Francis of Assisi. So this is Godhood. It's one, but it then is, it's manifest in 5 features. So big arguments over this in Christian theology and their church and so on. And if we enter in with our perspective, and they appreciate. So this is the Godhead. And then the supreme personality of Godhead is Krishna. Okay, we got that down. Godhead, Godhood, the Trinity. Okay, they all appeared as the sons of Maharaj Dasarath. Lord Ramachandra and his brothers, Lakshman, Bharata, Shatrughna, as well as are all Vishnu Tattva, not Jiva Tattva. Okay. So this is a point, of course, that Prabhupada is, you all notice this again and again and again. Our acharyas are dealing with this. It has to be more and more depth each time. So the 9th canto should really be seeking in. As confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 539. Ramadi Murtishu Kalani Amena Teshtan Nanavatar Makaro Bhuvanesha Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhava Paramam Pumanjo Govindamadi Purusham Tamam Vadami. So he has many forms, such as Ram, etc. And these all exist eternally. Yeah, it's a whole other discussion then, how all the pastimes exist eternally. Are they in Vrindavan? Where does Ram Lila take place in Vrindavan? I'll make that one of my questions at the end here. My notes here. Ram Lila Raja. Okay. And the example, of course, very nice example, is that many candles are all lit from the same candle, have equal power. But in one respect, one of them is original. There are many, many holy dhams throughout the world, many ISKCON temples. But Sri Dham Mayapur is the original candle. All of our ISKCON centers every corner of our temples is Vaikuntha, but Mayapur is Mayapur. But why would someone want to appreciate that difference? How do you appreciate the difference? It's a subtle thing. How Mayapur is different than our other ISKCON centers. Another question then. Text number 3. Okay. O King, Parikshit, the transcendental activities of Ramachandra have been described by many great saintly persons who have seen the truth. Because you have heard again and again about Lord Ramachandra, the husband of Mother Sita, I shall describe these activities only in brief. Please listen. So Prabhupada hops right in, and what's he focusing on? He's focusing on described by great saintly persons, modern Rakshasas. So Prabhupada is getting very, he's starting right off here. Modern Rakshasas, oh my goodness, posing as academically advanced merely because they have doctorates, have tried to prove that Ramachandra, supreme person, not the supreme personality of Godhead, but an ordinary person. Okay. So the Prabhupada is making this point that we only understand these things from Tattvadarshi. And of course, he uses Bhagavad Gita 434 to to support this. Prabhupada said this movement is very authorized because it is based upon Bhagavad Gita. So what was it? Trione Prestan or Prestan Trione? It's there are three basic fundamental forms of establishing your idea, your philosophy, references in Vedic culture: Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and Vedanta Sutra. So you see, practically speaking, that our whole culture is based upon Bhagavad Gita, but selected verses. I asked people, how many verses would you have to know so that there would be like about a 75% chance that the next verse that Prabhupada cited, you would know it. How many verses? How many verses does Prabhupada really cite, the Acharyas? And it's coming back 60, 70, like that. Really, the ones that are really frequently cited, that maybe like 75% of the time, is actually a very, very small number, very manageable. Okay. So I'll close our eyes and chant the verse, 434. Tadviri pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninastav vadarshinaha. Such a powerful verse. Tad, that vidi. Which vidi? Oh, the vidi that's gone before it. The vidi of how to do austerities, how to do austerity. That knowledge of austerities. Okay. And the purport, one thing we always use again and again and again and again, Prabhupada says, how's it called? Blind faith and absurd inquiry are condemned. Blind faith and absurd inquiry are condemned. Not just we don't like them, they're condemned. So this is a very fundamental point, because so many groups, they're concerned with this. Well, I saw one very, very big Mormon movie, whatever, a propaganda thing, very good, reenacting Jesus right after his life. And they were saying that faith means blind faith. You just have to believe in Jesus. But our point is no. Our point is that God is always giving us enough knowledge. A faithful person is not somebody. What's the word here? A faithful person is not blind faith. A faithful person is somebody who acts upon the knowledge he has. That's the problem. Krishna's always trying to give us knowledge. But what are we going to do with it? So faithful means Shara Shabde Vishvas Kahi Sudvrida Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Kwali Sarvakama Krita Hoy. It means firm faith that just by being a devotee, everything else follows. Shraddha. So we do it. We do it. So this is blind faith and absurd inquiry. So many times science, knowledge for knowledge's sake. You want to take your notes? There is a book called we got when I was in university called To Know a Fly. Okay, by Professor Dethier. He had a whole investigation about flies. He actually had his students calculate how much the average excrement from a fly weighs. Like that. And his whole purpose, I think, was to show how to apply the scientific method, and in terms of without any practical purpose like that, the process without any content. But without some purpose, it all falls apart. This is another thing about science again. Vidi, knowledge. Knowledge is only there because there is motivation. First, there's motivation to know. This Bhagavatam describes the highest truth, reality distinguished from illusion, for the welfare of all. So we start off from the very beginning with love, and because we love, because we want to serve, because we're motivated, then our knowledge develops like that. Okay, so very important verse, 434. And again, keep your questions. We'll keep timer at the end. Okay. And Prabhupada said there are so many Ramayanas, and some of them are not actually authoritative. So that brings up in my mind Ramcharitmanas by Tusi. That's not by Tusi Das. It's by Tulsi Das. This is This is old, old Hindi, Awadi, and difficult to understand for modern Hindi speakers, what I've been told by big professors. Yeah. And from that, the Hanuman Chalisa is recited many times. So to my understanding, one time Prabhupada was at a symposium, a mela, and one lady was sponsoring it, a rich lady, pretty big, several days, and it was glorifying, I think, Ramayana, and especially, and Prabhupada was saying when he spoke, this is how Prabhupada presented it. He said, many times during this symposium, or Tulsidas, his Ramcharitmanas has been presented. But he said, this is not actually Ramayana. Very nice, but it is a poet's invention. So like that, I think Prabhupada liked the Ramcharitmanas, but he considered that some things, were the poet's, a passion were coming into it and his perspectives like that and so on. Because it's something we'll come in contact in terms of many different Ramayanas. Okay. And coming down here, and we put a list of many Ramayana resources. So right within the Bhagavatam in the first canto, of course, you know this, 1:3, Brahma is describing all the incarnations, and there's one verse for the Ram. This all chant is together. Naradevatvam apanaha surakarya chakirshaya samudra nigrahadini chakri viryani ataparam. In the 18th incarnation, which one? 18. How can you remember that? 18 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. Oh, okay. The 18th incarnation, the Lord appeared as King Ram in order to perform some pleasing work for the demigods. He exhibited superhuman powers by controlling the Indian Ocean and then killing the atheistic king Ravana, who was on the other side of the sea. These two aspects, like Krishna is always glorified in terms of being Giridhari. When we're talking about trying to say Krishna is God, we say he lifted Govardhan Hill. So we'll see so many times that Ram is glorified for crossing the Indian Ocean and killing Ravana, the demon. Okay, and then also the second canto is also what is it? Scheduled incarnations, specific incarnations, the source of all incarnations. Text number 24 and 25. Okay. Supreme Personality of Godhead, being aggrieved for his distant, intimate friend Sita, glanced over the city of the enemy Ravana with red-hot eyes like those of Hara, who wanted to burn the kingdom of heaven. The great ocean, trembling in fear, gave him his way because his family members, the aquatics, like the sharks, snakes, and crocodiles, were being burnt by the heat of the angry red-hot eyes of the Lord. When Ravana was engaged in the battle, the trunk of the elephant, which carried the king of heaven, Indra, broke into pieces, having collided with the chest of Ravana, and the scattered broken parts illuminated all directions. Ravana therefore felt proud of his prowess and began to loiter in the midst of the fighting soldiers, thinking himself the conqueror of all directions. But his laughter, overtaken by joy, along with his very air of life, suddenly ceased with the tingling sound of the bow of Ramachandra, the personality of Godhead. Okay. Third resource. Before there was any kind of publication of the Ramayana and ISKCON, devotees wanted to do the drama, and they asked Prabhupada what was a good Ramayana, and he recommended one. It was a Shastri. I can't remember the first name now. Maybe somebody knows it. Some Shastri. And I found it at the University of California, library. And it was nice. It was a little pedantic. It was a little bit literal, Every time it would say Sita, it would say Sita, a princess of the Videha region. But that's there. There's a good Ramayana, which say, it's not a Hare Krishna Ramayana. Purna Prajnadas, he has a very, very nice teenager's Ramayana. I like it. It just goes through with a story. Really nice, very easy to read. And as far as I know, he and Bhakti Vikas Maharaj had the same original translation. So you'll be Bhaktivedanta Swami's Ramayana is much more philosophical. He was always like logical, things like that. So you can see two different resources. Of course, Veda-based.io, there's Krishna Dharmas. And Krishna's Dharmas Ramayana, I like it very much because everybody else, it's almost like they say, okay, I'm going to stop the Leela now and I'm going to preach to you for a while. But his preaching, in my experience, just fits right in naturally. It's just naturally like that. So I very much like his music that. Besides that, there's my goodness, there's one scholar came up with 300, 140 major Ramayans around the world. There's a Ramayana in Thailand, which is totally mixed with the local history, Fat Ram, Sri Ram. So it's a very pervasive book. Actually, even in South America and Bolivia, in the carnival there, there's a whole story they do every year as a reenactment, way in the 5 miles in the sky or something like that, way up there, 3 miles. And they're required to teach it in the school curriculum on their culture, but they haven't got a good source of it. And it's a story about a princess who was kidnapped by a demon and then rescued by her husband along with the help of monkeys. Yeah, sound familiar? Yeah. So we'll find all over the place the cult of Vasudeva and Sankarshan. Historically, archaeologically, the cult of Vasudeva and Sankarshan. Yeah. That's how they were known. Krishna Lila takes what? It's 11 years old when he leaves Vrindavan, something like that. Yeah, 12, 14 years old, something very young. And after that, 140 years or something. So it's a very little part. So most of the people knew Krishna and Balaram as Vasudeva and Sankarshan. Yeah. So all over the world, in my experience, archaeologically, you'll find remnants of the cult of Vasudeva and Sankarshan. Okay. Then, if you want to go to YouTube, the evil Gita Press, I read their Ramayana. Maharaj was talking about it. It was nice. When you see it that way without commentaries and everything else, the one I read wasn't very big. And it was out of print. Gita Press had one. Then you go to YouTube, and I have the link here, and you'll come to one cartoon Ramayana, which was done as a cooperation between Japanese and Indian people. And that's nice. It really focuses on pacifism, because the Japanese really, after World War II, they really didn't like their military. They're really down in their whole military structure and stuff. So there's always in this, the Japanese aspect, it's preaching how Ram is talking against war, against fighting. And in the end, we're all brothers, dead Rakshasas and dead men like that. It's very interesting. Yeah. So, and if you come to 59 minutes into 1 hour, 60 minutes, then there's a very, very nice thing of Hanumatpresaka. Like that. I'm sorry, your teacher has a bias here. I mean, my bias, And it's very, very nice as far as I'm concerned. Sita's lamenting, Ravana's coming, trying to seduce her and terrorize her. And he goes away and she starts crying. And she says, "Oh, Ram!" Okay, like that. And then Hanuman hops out of the tree or something, has a little opera, I can imagine in in Indian movie theaters, this thing, the whole thing stops. Everybody starts singing along with it, So the refrain is Jananiham Ramaduta Hanuman, Jananiham Ramaduta Hanuman. Like that. Very nice. But of course, you can imagine how it's just, it says just the first kind voice that she's heard in a long time, friendly and everything else. So much separation. Janaki is separating Vishnu Priya is showing separation, showing us such wonderful examples. So, O Mother, we are Hanuman, the messenger of Lord Ram. Charana Vandanam Karomi Pamar Avasara Prapta Mahan. So Radhika Ramandas translated this. He said it's kind of a combination of Hindi and Sanskrit, like that. I beg to offer my obeisances to your feet. This fool has obtained this great opportunity. Charana Vandana, I have it twice, I don't know why. Okay. Kritva Tava Apaharanam Ravana Janita Marana Abaham. When Ravana kidnapped you, he was inviting his own death, which took birth at that time. So when Ravana, Sita Haran, when he kidnapped Sita, which is very interesting, yeah, like that, because at that point she tried to serve Guru directly. This is our contemplation on this here. She tried to serve Guru directly to the extent of she tried to serve God directly, Ram, to the extent of actually blaspheming and insulting Guru. So Lakshman is Guru. And she not only was saying, "Oh, go and save him, go and save him," and Guru was saying, "Don't worry, Devi, Mataji, he's safe, he's safe." And so she actually accused Lakshman of wanting Ram dead, so he could enjoy her. "Oh, you've always been thinking about me." It was terrible, But of course, she was hysterical, and she was trying to push Lakshman to go take care of Ram. So he did it. Okay. And all these problems resulted because Sita, Hladini Shakti, tried to serve Ram without the perspective of Guru. All the Brajvasis want to enter the river. They want to save Krishna from Kaliya, but they're going to die. But they're all in their bhava of loving Krishna, saving Krishna. Balaram sacrifices his bhava of Krishna is my kid brother, for remembering who Krishna is. He stops them from entering the water. So even in Goloka, we're seeing that Radha, Krishna, and Balaram are all associating, and they all have their particular things to play. Krishna's devotee, and devotional service all come together and dance. Krishna's devotee, and devotional service. Krishna, Radha, Purnamasi, and nobody can quite tell who's in charge. Okay. So, but when she was kidnapped, everybody wanted to help her. The little squirrels wanted to help her. The gods in the heaven wanted to help her. It was so piteous. Her crying, "Ram, Lakshman, Ram, Lakshman." It was so piteous that the entire universe went off of its axis. And the whole universe, when it was just so, went out of axis because the Sita's, crying was so piteous. Everybody wanted to help her, but they were afraid of Ravana. So anyway, everybody was in so much distress, everything else, and Rama said, yes, this is very, 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 very painful, piteous moment. He said, but our purpose is served. Ravana is a dead man. It says here, same thing. When Ravana kidnapped you, it says inviting his death, but at that point it said it was sealed. The thing was over. It's just like Krishna showing Arjuna. It's all over. Hasyami Prabhu Bhavira Pratikshana Kintu Karoti Sadatava Chintana. I see that my Lord is always grave, but actually he is constantly thinking of you. He's a grave, but he's always thinking of you. I'll just go. I got this here. Oh yeah. Tasya Nayana Bashpakulatam Mamahat Mahat Keda Parijnan. Seeing his eyes filled with tears, I feel great distress. So seeing Lord Chaitanya's eyes filled with tears, Haridas, everybody else feels great distress. So this is the Japanese cartoon Ramayana. I didn't put it here. There's also another one by, what's it called? One Japanese sweet company, which also has incredible graphics like that. These, of course, are wonderful on Friday night, movie night. You have on your center, on Friday night, you have movies, okay? You advertise it on the campus, wherever else, and you have people come there. It's nice atmosphere, a little Indian, some incense, everything else, and you show maybe the Ramayana like this, cartoon Ramayana, maybe over like, 4 nights or something, 4 Saturdays, 2 Saturdays, 3, something other. And of course, you finish it off right when everybody's, there's a cliffhanger. Oh my God, what will happen next? Come back next Saturday. So you hook people, okay, free. Okay. But then you serve, what is it called? Free popcorn. Free popcorn. Okay. I'm going to go bankrupt here. But you make the popcorn a little salty. Okay. And then you sell lemonade or hibiscus tea at $2 a glass or something like that. So we're cheating here. The popcorn is free, but a little salty. And then we sell our drinks at $2 a glass or $1 a glass and make a little profit on the whole process. I learned these things from Hansa Duda. Okay. So these are our resources. Okay. Go ahead here. Translation. Now, number 4 is a very, very, very nice summary of the whole thing. This is in prose. It's not in Sanskrit meter. So you want to make a poster. You want to summarize everything to keep the promise of his father intact. Lord Ramachandra immediately gave up the position of king, and accompanied by his wife Mother Sita, wandered from one forest to another on his lotus feet, which were so delicate that they were unable to bear even the touch of Sita's palms. The Lord was also accompanied by Hanuman, or another monkey, Sugriva, king of the monkeys, and by his own younger brother, Lakshmana, both of whom gave him relief from the fatigue of wandering in the forest. Having cut off the nose and ears of Shurpanakha, thus disfiguring her, the Lord was separated from Mother Sita. He therefore became angry, moving his eyebrows and thus frightening the ocean, who then allowed the Lord to construct a bridge to cross the ocean. He did that. Subsequently, the Lord entered the kingdom of Ravana to kill him like a fire devouring the forest. May that Supreme Lord Ramachandra give us all protection. Okay. Yeah. A couple points here. Okay. We're always thinking that Kikayi was demanding her 3 promises or 2 promises. She was on the Rata with Dasarat one time in a battle, and the wheel was coming off, and things were so intense that she just stuck her finger down to hold it on, and actually maybe even cut her finger off. Definitely damaged, and she held it all together. And he was so thankful. He said, "Hey, ask some benedictions from your husband." She said, "When I want them, I'll ask for them." Maybe it was 2. So she asked for Ram to be exiled and Bharat to be made the king. It's we'll get into the whole story here, but this is part of it. So at that point, I think Dasarat really could have denied to give these curses. He could have said, "Look, I promised you 2 benedictions, not 2 curses. Benedictions, not 2 curses." This is my point there. Okay. But people are being impelled. The hunchback, who was poisoned the mind of Kikayi, was actually a Gandharva sent by the demigods to push things along. There's many stories within the story. So Kikayi with this one crazy temporarily. Okay. What else we got here? Moving his eyebrows. Okay. Cut off the Supranaka, according to the Garga Samhita, which the Brajmana Parikrama uses. I think that people, Shibram Swami is saying it's bona fide. Probably belongs to maybe a different sampradaya. But Supranaka became Hunchback. What's her name? In Krishna Lila. We got her name now. Krishna steps on her toes and makes her straight. Kubja. Yeah, Kubja. So she had this attraction to Ram, but it would have been covered over by something else. So Krishna kept making her an ugly woman, so nobody would associate with her. and so she didn't get stimulated by anybody else for her little bit of attraction like that. She wanted to enjoy with Ram. That potency associates with Krishna sometimes. Krishna associates with that potency sometimes, but not all the time. So it's like somebody who agrees only to eat prasadam. Prabhu, I will never take anything but prasad, but I want good prasad. So this is one kind of devotee. This is Supernaka, Kubja, like that. Okay, translation. In the arena of sacrifice performed by Vishwamrita, okay, he killed. Okay, yeah, he killed all these demons. Of course, when Vishwamrita was trying to do his sacrifices, they were all coming, and he killed them in the presence of Lakshman. May he give us protection. This is asking for protection. His pastimes were wonderful, like those of a baby elephant. In the assembly where Mother Sita chose her husband, in the midst of all the heroes of the world, he broke the bow belonging to Lord Shiva, even though it was so heavy that 300 people had to carry it. I have to be careful here because I get carried off into all the other pastimes. Okay. Thus he achieved the hand of Mother Sita, who was equal with him. Indeed, she was the goddess of fortune. Okay. And afterwards, of course, he met Parasuram, who had the other bow, and diminished his pride, and Parasuram was very happy to be defeated. Carrying out, but when he returned, of course, he was banished, to the forest. And he left everything like everything like a self-realized soul. Okay. And of course, in the purport, Prabhupada talks about the story, which I gave before now, about Kaikeyi had these benedictions, okay, which were not benedictions. Text number 9. While wandering in the forest where he accepted a life of hardship and carrying his invincible bow and arrows in hand, he deformed Ravana's sister, who was polluted with lusty desires, by cutting off her nose and ears. He also killed her 14,000 Rakshasa friends, headed by Kara, Trishira, and Dushana, like that. He sent Rama, Sita, and Lakshman to a cave with Lakshman to protect Sita. And he's standing there without a second person to help him. He then, withstood all of Shikara and Dushana's 14,000 Rakshasa soldiers. Rakshasas, if you're going to see them now, be probably about twice as tall as a human being, like that. And big, fangs, and rip your throat out, tear the skin off of your body, like that, like tearing open a baked potato and going for the liver first, and and washing it all down with a big glass of cognac, like that, distilled grape juice. Really gross, heavy race of people. But of course, Vibhishana, also Rakshasa. Well, see, I guess so. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, his mother was Rakshasa. Okay. And wherever they would go, wherever they would run to escape, they would find Ramachandra stationed with his invincible bow, shooting innumerable arrows at inconceivable velocities into the heart of the Rakshasas. So in a matter of a short time, maybe 20 minutes or something, he had killed and destroyed all 14,000 Rakshasas. But apparently Suparnika was watching all this, and she went back to Ravana. Very nice in the Ramayana movie. When Ravana heard about this, we had 10 heads, and how beautiful and attractive Sita was, his mind was agitated by lusty desires. So it shows that actually Suparnika was doing this. He might have just passed it by or something, sent somebody to kill Ram. But she was talking all about her, and how wonderful it was. So she stimulated him to cause all of this. Prabhupada says in his instructions on Varnashram Dharma, purports of Bhishma to Yudhisthira, that women, as a source of inspiration for men, are more powerful than men. Therefore, such powerful women have to learn how to control this by chastity and shyness. So, of course, Suparnika wasn't doing that. Okay. He left his residence, okay. And then, of course, he had Maricha, his uncle, help him to try and drive Ram away. There's a whole other story. There's so many stories here. And in the end, he killed him, and Ravana kidnapped, Next one. When Ravana entered the forest, Lakshman also absent. The worst of the Rakshasas, Ravana, kidnapped Sita Devi. And our goal is accomplished. Again, Brahma said that. The daughter of the king of Videha, this is a tiger, sees his unprotected sheep when the shepherd is absent. Okay. Then he was going everywhere, looking for Sita. In the beginning, it was going to destroy the entire universe because nobody had even tried to help Sita. But Ram calmed him down and said, "You've come to bring peace and everything else. So if you go crazy," Lakshman calmed him down. Okay. So then, experiencing intense grief and separation, he went looking for Sita. So Prabhupada in the purport gives a very, very nice purport. Maybe we can stop here, take a break. And Prabhupada says, Stri Sangam Gati Niti, indicates the condition of a person attached to women shown by Lord Ramachandra himself. Stri Sanginam Gati Mati. This is what happens. Okay. According to moral instructions, Grihe Narim Vivarjayat. When one goes on tour, one should not bring his wife. Formerly, men would travel without conveyances, but still, as far as possible, when one leaves home, one should not take his wife with him. Okay, this is very, very interesting instructions in Sri Dharma. Yes, because if you're going to go with a wife and children and family, then you have to make very, some special accommodations like that. I know when I'm traveling as a sannyasi or something in India, in the beginning, I was traveling. I went to 1974, first time in India. No, 78, first Tirubaba festival. It was primitive then, and I was just traveling alone. I could do it and stuff, it was intense. I remember one time I was almost killed by street dogs. Eaten alive by street dogs. Yeah. So, it's very tough like this and so on. And some girls are tough. Some girls have mustaches. Okay. Some guys have breasts. Yeah. Okay. But generally speaking, as a class, this is, ladies they go some places in Vanapras. They go to some festivals with their husband and grown-up sons and Rath Yatra, this place and that place. But the body is just not designed for this. And it's not their service. They're supposed to stay home and give advice, guide people, give perspective. Okay. If one is attached to women, this attachment is always troublesome. In Peru, some of our disciples are telling me that ladies are saying that there's the movement down there. There's a T-shirt that some girls are wearing. It says, "No boyfriend, no problem." Very nice detachment. Okay, maybe you got to get married to the Duke. You're a chaste girl and everything else. Nobody's going to marry you. You're becoming an old woman. You're already 17 years old. You're not married or something. Okay, so you go to the Duke or the Count and say, "Hey, look, Baba, I'm a chaste girl and everything else, and you got to marry me. You're Kshatriya." He says, "Okay, come on." So he may be married to 40 women, whatever. What does that mean? He gives them one child, and they find their place amongst the co-wives and everybody else, and go on with their life. And they got a problem, they can talk to their husband. Okay, but usually they have their own life. Prabhupada says that Tokeshu Bharati Das that you should associate with your wife at breakfast and dinner. He said, "That's all?" He said, "Yes. She has her life. You have your life. On the weekend, a little more. Maybe some more in the beginning." But this is so many things about Sri Dharma. Here. Prabhupada says, of course, this is the material side of Sri Sangi. And he gives the opposite side completely, which is Sita and Ram. So all the separation of Sita and Ram are the most intense happiness. And in between that are devotees, Devaki and Vasudeva on the high side, who are, suffering from their marriage situation. And on our side, devotees who are living together as husband and wife, and because of their material attachments are having trouble within their grihastha ashram with each other and fighting over things, but because they're devotees, they hang in there, and then gradually they become purified, and after a while, they begin to realize that Grihastha ashram is a wonderful place for cultivating Krishna consciousness. And at some point, we're going to come to the point where we could be vanaprastha. At some point, then we're going to come to the point where the husband will go off and travel all over the world and realize that Krishna is everywhere. And then the lady can travel with him in her mind, everything else. So this is this is one of the main purposes why the Lord came. The other resource I didn't give is Hanuman's prayers in the 5th canto. And he says that Ram came to do some pleasing work for the demigods and to show Grihasthas what Grihastha ashram is and what you got to do and how you got to live it properly. So Ram is the example for Grihasthas. Narayan is the example for sannyasis and brahmacharis. Okay. So then Prabhupada's going through and quoting from, we'll finish this off here. Okay. Let's chant this verse here and close our eyes. This is Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Oh my goodness. Avachananti mam huda manusyam tahum ashritaha param bhavama janato mama bhuta maheshwaram. So the fools, they don't know that Krishna, Krishna's body, Krishna's pastimes. Hanuman hears these Ramayana all the time, liberated souls. So if these actually were material separation, how could they hear them? But actually, it's the greatest pleasure. And then Madhvacharya Prabhupada quotes from the Skanda Purana, okay, and giving the story that was actually impossible. Is it the Kurma Brahmana? It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He meets one Brahmana who's going to kill himself because Ravana has touched Sita. And he finds a chapter of a book explaining and goes back on his route to give it to the Brahmana that when Ravana approached Sita, she disappeared. The fire god grabbed her up and took her off outside of Ravana's vision at that time and gave her Maya Sita, which I think was Vedavati, who Ravana, contaminated, earlier. She said, "I'll come back and kill you. You're causing harm to so many women, so a woman will be your death." A little shook up. So I think Vedavati got the opportunity then to be in the Leela and the separation. Okay. And finishing off, Prabhupada says, further understanding is that no matter how powerful a woman is in the material world, she must be given protection. It's a very, very interesting point. Very interesting point. And our point is that ultimately you can form associations for girls and women to be strong in business associations, political associations. But in the end, our indication here is, and you can try it out, is that the woman always needs to be protected, no matter how powerful she can be in the material world. Of course, these are all big topics for discussion. Ram Leela is a big topic. When we were traveling with Srup Damodar Maharaj, we had so much entrance into Indian culture. We were in Madras, 1984, and Mrs. Parthasarati, she was running 5 girls' high schools, secondary schools, all very successful. So one award ceremony, she was giving everything out, awards to people on the stage. And she said, "I can only do this because of my chastity to my husband." She's making it very apparent that any authority she had, anything else, was based upon her sticking to her husband. And in Manipur, we go with Srup Damodar Maharaj, they're very Kshatriya inclined people. So we're seeing them, they like martial arts. They have their own martial arts. They take kung fu. But I saw they're big, stocky, solid girls in there, fighting with guys, wrestling, knife fighting, And these are guys that probably none of us here girls that none of us here would want to mess with, solid. There was one girl who was a brigadier general in the U.S. Army, U.S. Army. She was a tough woman and a very good philosophy of life, black lady. So, but I saw it when they were fighting, they would go back and their big brother or their father was in their corner. And they would get back and you could see that they were listening, giving advice, and they were nodding, hey, calm down. And so you could see how even they were doing this, everybody respected. They were completely chaste. Yeah, girls want to fight, they can do it. Let them fight, But yeah, but then it's okay. There's always a guy behind them and stuff that we can make sure that they're gonna not be carried away by their natural faults. It's like sannyasis become carried away by their natural faults. Okay, so this is up to text number 12. Any comments or questions here specifically before the break? Ram Leela. I don't see any hands up, but I'm supposed to see that. Everybody's happy with the Ram Raja. Everybody's happy with Sita being kidnapped.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, you were saying that Ravan, when he heard about Sita's beauty, his 10 heads got agitated with lusty desires.
Yes.
But Ravan knew about Sita Devi earlier because he was also participating in this Swayamvara.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I never heard that before. Yeah, I never heard that. So why couldn't he lift the bow? My goodness. Is that in the Valmiki Ramayana? I never heard it.
I don't know about that, which Ramayana.
Yeah, maybe it's in the we call it the Tulsi Ramcharitmanas. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's the one description we heard there, and pulse like that. Yeah. So, any other comments, questions? No.
Maharaj, one more question.
Okay.
Which when Sita Devi came out from the Agni, that was after killing the Ravan. But when she entered into the Agni, I don't remember. Can you please?
Huh?
When she entered into the Agni, and what is that called? Mayavati has came.
They were exchanged. Yeah.
Yeah. When it happened.
Yeah. No, well, they brought, the Ramayana I'm reading in Krishna Dharmas that when he asked, I think, Vibhishana to go and bring her back. And she came back, and then she walked on the ground, and everybody could see her, which was, for a princess, was a big thing. He said, no, the monkeys have deserved the right to see who they were fighting for. And they were all satisfied. Okay, she was a wonderful person, prize. Then, of course, Ram was very strict with her and said, okay, you can go wherever you want to go. I just did this to save my honor, like that. And so she said, I've never been unchaste to you. And she said, the only option for a woman who has been publicly insulted by her husband is to commit suicide. Be an option, gain honor. So she entered into the fire, and then Agni brought her back out. So at that point, the person who was apparently playing, I haven't read this from Prabhupada, but as far as I know, it's true. At that point, the exchange took place. When she went, Vidavati entered into the fire, very powerful girl, and then Agni, the fire god, brought her out, and bore witness to her chastity. And Ram said, I knew it all along, but people would criticize you and criticize me, and I'm the king. Caesar's wife has to be above suspicion. Papa quotes that. Ordinary girl, this and that, but if you're the princess, you get very nice clothes, very nice education. Yeah, but you have other things that are difficult. And this is that Sita had to be above all question. The queen's wife did not have any question that she's unchaste. So he tested her because he knew it was going to happen. And even still, she was being criticized. So in the end, he rejected her to scare everybody else. Other women might think, well, hey, how can you reject me? Ram didn't reject Sita. But no, he did. So all the other ladies who were having, other women who were having some tendency to be a little loose in their activities, they all became frightened. Okay, wow. Yeah. Okay, let's take a break here. It's 5:41. So 10 minutes. Let's come back at 5:51, 5:52, 5:55. Okay, 5 minutes to the hour, 5 minutes to the half hour. Thank you so much for your association. Please excuse our offenses. Hare Krishna. Hello, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maharaj, are you there? Hello. So, this we mentioned that there's two songs in the Prabhupada quotes in their entirety. We mentioned that there are two songs that Prabhupada quotes completely in his purports, as far as we know, and other people know. And one we sang yesterday, which was Goranga Bolite Habe Pulaka Sharir Hari Hari Bolite Nayane Babe Nir. And the other one is here. It's Narada Muni is being cursed by Daksha. You may remember this in the 6th canto. And then Prabhupada is giving this song about Narada Muni. 6.5.22. Svara Brahmani Nirbhata. Somebody can respond here. Somebody could be our chief guest.
Svara Brahmani Nirbhata
Rishikesha Padambuje.
Rishikesha Padambuje
Akandam Chittam Avesha.
Akandam Chitam Avesha
Lokan Anucharan Munahi.
Lokan Anucharam Muni
Swara Brahmani. Spiritual sounds. Okay. So in Prabhupada, the purport, so the translation is including things that aren't in the original Sanskrit. Swara Brahmani being expanded. So it appears that Prabhupada puts Sridhar Swami's commentary in his translations sometimes and keeps Jiva Goswami for the purports. So Prabhupada says the 7 musical notes, sa, ra, sha, ra, ra, ga, ma, pa, da, na, ni, or do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, are used in musical instruments. But originally they come from the Samaveda. The great sage Narada vibrates as sounds describing the pastimes of the Supreme Lord by such vibrations as Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. He fixes his mind to let the lotus feet of the Lord. That's the point. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. Thus he directly perceives Rishikesh, the master of the senses. Okay, engage the senses. After delivering the Haryashvas, Narada Muni continued traveling throughout the planetary system, his mind always fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Purport: the goodness of the great sage Narada Muni is described herewith. He always chants about the pastimes of the Lord and delivers the fallen souls back to Godhead. In this regard, Bhaktivedanta Course has sung. So, somebody can respond here. Narada Muni Bhajaivi Naradika Ramana Name.
Narada Muni Bhajaye Vina Radhika Ramana Name.
Nama Mane Udita Haya Bhakata Gita Shame.
Nama Mani Udita Hoye Bhakata Gita Same.
Amiyadara Varishighana Shavana Yoga Legeya.
Ami Adhara Varishegana Shravana Yuga Legiya.
Bhakata Jana Sagane Nache Maria Apanahiya.
Bhakata jana saghane nache bhariya panahiya.
Madhuri Pura Ashabapashe Mataya Jagata Jane
Madhuri pura asab pashi mataye jagat jane.
Matnu Keha Bakande Keha Vanache Keha Mate Mane Mane
Ke hava kande, ke hava nache, ke hamate mane mane.
Panchavadana Narade Dari Premarus Hagana Roar
Panchavadana narade dhari, premera sagana rola.
Kamalashana Nachia Bale Bola Bola Bala Bola Bola Hari Bola
Kamalasana nachiya bale, bola bola hari bola.
Sahasranana Paramasuke Hari Hari Baligaya
Sahasranana paramasokhe, hari hari boli gaya.
Nama Prabhave Matila Vishva Nama Rasa Sabe Paya
Nama prabhave matila vishwa namarasa sabe paya.
Shri Krishna Nama Rasane Pure Purela Amara Osha
Shri Krishna nama rasa nesvori pura ladamar asha.
Shri Rupa Pade Yachaya Iha Bhakti Vinoda Dasa
Shri Rupa padeya chaye bhakati vinodadasa.
Purport of the song is that Narada Muni, the great soul, plays a string instrument called Bina, vibrating the sound of Radhika Raman, which is another name for Krishna. As soon as he strokes the strings, all the devotees begin responding, making a very beautiful vibration. And we're in the Sampradaya of Narada Muni, so we can respond. Accompanied by the stringed instrument, the singing seems like a shower of nectar, and all the devotees dance in ecstasy to the fullest extent of their satisfaction. While dancing, they appear madly intoxicated with ecstasy, as if drinking the beverage called Maruri Pura. Some of them cry, some of them dance, and some of them, although unable to dance publicly, dance within their hearts. Lord Shiva embraces Narada Muni and begins talking in an ecstatic voice. And seeing Shiva dancing with Narada, Lord Brahma also joins, saying, all of you kindly chant Haribol, Haribol. The king of heaven, Indra, also gradually joins with great satisfaction and begins dancing and chanting Haribol, Haribol. In this way, by the influence of the transcendental vibration of the holy name of God, the whole universe becomes ecstatic. Bhaktivedanta Course says, when the whole universe becomes ecstatic, my desire is satisfied. I therefore pray under the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami that the chanting of Harinam may go on like this very nicely. So, very nice song. Sing, dance, explain. And you can have programs. We have these cultural programs. And we include Udilo Arun is a nice song also because it's so much philosophy in that. Maybe the best song. It introduces Lord Chaitanya, what he's doing. And then the people like to hear some Bengali, and they can even follow along. You have a PowerPoint show. And then explain it, and it explains our philosophy. And we can say this is a song of, quite very, very old song. Yeah. And about Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago. So Udilo Arun is a very nice song for preaching. Okay, let's continue then with the Ramayana. Offensive chanting. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Can you see our screen now? Oh, yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Can you see our screen now?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Lord Dharmachandra, whose lotus feet are worshipped by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, had assumed the form of a human being. Thus he performed the funeral ceremony of Jatayu, who was killed by Ravana. The Lord then killed the demon named Kadamba. And after making friends with the monkey chiefs, killing Bali, and arranging for the deliverance of Mother Sita, he went to the beach of the ocean. So how many stories are there in between here? Our whole Hanumatpresaka Leela is include making arrangements for the deliverance of Mother Sita. Kadamba, Kabanda. Purport. Okay. Yeah. So Jaitayu, he was trying to fight with Ravana, but in the end Ravana was so powerful that he cut off both his wings and fell to the ground. And then Ram was so happy with his service. Nobody else tried to save Sita but him. And he was actually, he cut Ravana with his wing claws and everything else. And he was dying, bleeding to death. And Ram said that you will achieve the highest destination. And he said Sita was stolen at this time. And so astrologically, anything that's stolen at that time always returns to the owner. After reaching the beach, Ramchandra fasted for 3 days, waiting for the arrival of the ocean personified. And the ocean was apparently a little haughty or proud it didn't come. So then finally, when Ramachandra threatened to burn the entire ocean and dry it all up, the ocean came and offered very, very nice prayers, saying, we're stupid, we're unintelligent. We have Jadadiya, very stone-like intelligence. So in the purport then, Prabhupada makes this point that therefore punishment is necessary for dull, blunt intelligence. So we wonder, I'm a devotee, why am I suffering? Okay, because we're so stupid. Myself again and again. And maybe I'm not so stupid, but my body is so stupid. My body and my mind, they're carrying on, even though I know this is stupid. I don't want them to do it, but I can't control them. So I try my very best. I use all the techniques I control not to overeat. I do this, I do that, I do this and that. The result is, my personal experience, Shastra, is that then my body suffers, from overeating or something like that, but I don't suffer because I really tried to control it and stuff like that. Okay, it's going to do these things, act according to its nature. And then maybe my body learned something. Okay. So yes, threat of force or use of force by a proper intelligent fashion. When a Kshatriya uses the force properly, a devotee, after that, nobody feels any bad taste. If it's not done properly, then there'll be a bad taste for everybody. Translation. All these things I can discuss more, but if any of these topics you want to discuss more, just take notes. My Lord. Okay, then he goes on offering his prayers and saying, yes, you can go and save Sita. So at this point, our mind is coming in, all these stories, building a bridge over the ocean. So many things. Are these Hindu myths? This is a very big topic, and it's being dealt with all throughout the Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada, of course, was presenting all this in terms of a scientific perspective, defeating materialistic scientists. Prabhupada, so many morning walks, Prabhupada is talking bad about the materialistic scientists. One kind of interesting incident, my friend Bharata was walking with Prabhupada in Hawaii on a morning walk before, Gita class, Bhagavatam class. And Srila Prabhupada was talking about the rascal scientists, causing so many problems, leading young girls into having abortions at 15 years old because it's just chemicals. So many things, horrible things are being done, under this perspective of science, what do you call Mayapur Jnanas. The Upanishad explains they're giving them all the tools they need to do these things. All these horrible things, atomic bombs for fighting, birth control skills for illicit sex, all coming from science. So Prabhupada was talking about these things with the devotees and walking along, becoming more and more furious. So Bharata said that then Prabhupada was walking a little bit ahead. The devotees fell a little bit behind. Maybe the path was a little narrow or something. So he was the only person who was really kind of close to Prabhupada. And to himself, not publicly, Prabhupada, thinking about the material scientists, said, "Goddamn bitches of sons," like that. And so Prabhupada was very, very emotional about these things. But of course, he got the English phrase wrong. It's also very, very charming, Prabhupada's phrase there, Okay. But yeah, this is how he felt about these things, and he felt about expressing it in English. And even if he couldn't express it perfectly, he was going to inspire his disciples like Swarup Damodar, others, Sadaputa, so many people, and all of us. We should all take this up. We should all surrender to this. How can I preach in this scientific atmosphere? How can I establish that there was a Ram? That these things did get floating on the water, I started in electrical engineering, changed to biological engineering, graduated in psychology. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, first class, good bachelor's degree, even some little graduate study. But I knew physics. I studied quantum mechanics, so I saw how I could fit in. I couldn't do Sadaputa's job. I couldn't do Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj's job, but they couldn't index the books because they were all specialists, and I wasn't a specialist in what they knew. If you want to talk to a PhD, you've got to be a specialist. That's what they respect. Of course, there's a whole big area. But the basic principle I'll mention here is that the Vedas are talking about these 4 ages. Our heart goes in cycles, our lungs go in cycles, our stomach goes in cycles, the days go in cycles, the years go in cycles. Well, why not the entire universe? Okay, it's very practical. And we can go on with explaining these in more detail. But we see then that it's presenting their yugas, Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga, and different lifespans. In the previous Yuga, people lived to be 1,000 years old. Okay, in the Bible, in the story of Methuselah, it said he lived to be over 1,000 years old. And there's several people right in the same paragraphs there that are mentioned living, 100, 900 years, 1,000 years, and all these things like that. So there is right away evidence from different oral traditions supporting our point of view. You can get into the whole thing of carbon dating, but to my direct investigation, there are many problems with carbon dating in terms of establishing a history of the world. So in the previous age, which was like the fall, if you go to New York City in the fall, autumn, you'll see some leaves in the trees, you'll see some squirrels, you'll see some final fruits, people running around. But then when the winter comes in New York City, you won't see anything. No fruits, no flowers, no leaves, no birds, no squirrels. You won't even see people. People are completely covered by thick clothing in their faces in the snow. So if a cockroach is born during this time, he'll say, no, it's always like this. But no, it's not like this. So when Krishna appeared, it was Dwapara Yuga, and things were much finer. Govardhan Lake, everything was bigger. People were living longer. Just like there's thousands of bacteria in your garbage bag, Krishna could give thousands of cows in charity. Space and time were different. So this is a whole separate section, but this is the fundamental point. I think one very important point is to understand how these things are taking place in different yugas, and these things are quite possible. Okay, it's a little bit of a summary about dealing with this point of, was Lord Ramachandra mythical? Okay. And it goes on talking now about Ravana. And a little magic bewilders a foolish person, So, but Ramachandra didn't show a little magic. He built a bridge, across the Indian Ocean. And so Ramachandra built a bridge, and Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill. Already made that point. 4:9. Close your eyes. Jamma karma chame devyam evam yo vedi tatvataha chakvadeham punar janma naiti mam sati arjuna naiti mam sarjuna. Learn the word by word, read the purports, absorb them, the classes on the verses. So cited in the Gita. 16. Okay. So they went across the bridge. that. They invaded Lanka, yeah, headed by monkeys like Sugriva, and Nila, and Hanuman, okay, and give him direction from Vibhishana. And the kingdom of Lanka, which had previously been burnt by Hanuman. So here's the whole Leela. And can you see our pictures now, Maharaj?
Yes, Maharaj.
What do you see? That's a very nice picture. That's maybe the nicest picture I've seen of Ram. I have a big collection of pictures, for PowerPoint shows and everything else. I have a nice big database of pictures. A very nice picture of Ram. And what's the next picture? Black and white. What's that picture?
It looks like Ravana kidnapping Sita.
Very nice, modern. Ram and Krishna in modern art. You have competitions like that. It's just amazing. Rath Yatra have a whole section for art competition, and it's give prizes, and it's just amazing how many devotees come up with beautiful inspirations. Okay, what do you see now? What's the next picture?
This is Hanuman burning Lanka.
Okay, yeah. I think another picture.
Yeah, this is. It seems like assembly of Hanuman, where assembly of Ravana, where Hanuman is captive.
Yeah, he doesn't have any clothes on. It's interesting. Yeah. See, he was tied up. What kind of ropes were those?
Can't say, Maharaj.
They were mystical ropes. Indrajit had them, some kind of ropes of Varuna or something like that. So Hanuman let himself be dragged into the assembly to see the strength of Ravana and confront him and try to challenge him directly. So Ravana was given so many chances. Yeah. So many lessons here. Okay. Now what do you see?
This is Hanuman beating Rakshasas.
Yeah, these are some modern comic book. That's really, really. I have another one. I didn't put in here. Oh, but it's the worst one. It's very nice. It's Ravana's worst nightmare. There's not a single Ramayana that I've read where Hanuman carries a club on a regular basis. He tears the elephants and everybody else Ravanas do with their nails, their teeth. He'll pick up he'll kill an elephant and then use that elephant to smash everybody else. He'll pick up a boulder, or sometimes he'll pick up a club. But I've never seen anywhere where he carries it as a regular accoutrement. That's something else. But always pictured with one. On the right, what does Hanuman have in his right hand?
That's a club.
That's his left hand.
Oh, that's left hand. It's not quite visible. I think he's carrying. Oh, he's carrying that ring that Ram gave him.
Yeah, that in ISKCON, that's the Upadeshamrita. You should always have the Upadeshamrita hanging around with you. I do that. It's so nice. You can read it. You can chop the spine off. Around here, it's so easy. These stories, you can chop the spine off and have it spiral bound. Oh, it's so nice when you spiral bind it, opening it, looking at it, researching it, memorizing it, and studying it. So, and then when you meet somebody, okay, I'm representing the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, and here's our book. And you can give people the nectar of instruction. And you can go back to the BBT with their full set order. They're convinced. There's a little preaching thing. Okay, any more pictures? Oh, that's a nice one. Yeah. What do you see now?
This is a war between Ram and Ravana direct.
Yeah.
Ram confronting Ravana directly.
Yeah. They got mustaches. They look a little old. Yeah. So many pictures. Some of these pictures appear and then go away. You got to kind of catch them, download them when they're there. Okay. And one more. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Prabhupada's making this point that he can make things float if he wants to make them float. Like that. This is just showing the potency of our Ram. Okay. Text 17. After entering Lanka, this monkey soldiers led by Sugriva, Nila, and Hanuman occupied all the sporting houses, granaries, treasuries, palace doorways, city gates, assembly places, palace frontages, and even the resting houses of the pigeons. Even the pigeons in Lanka were condemned, chased out. Of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the story of Ramachandra Khan, his whole village was plundered repeatedly. So Prabhupada says that wherever a great soul, Krishnadas Kaviraj says it, wherever a great soul is offended, not only that person, but his family and even the neighbors, are condemned. So even the pigeons had to suffer a reaction for hanging out in Lanka. Okay. When Ravana, the master of Rakshasas, saw the disturbances created by the monkey soldiers, he called for Nikumba, Kumbha, Dhumraksha, Durmukha, Surantaka, Narantaka, other Rakshasas, and also his son Indrajit. So who knows anything about Indrajit? Why is he called Indrajit?
Defeated Indra.
Okay,
Yeah.
Nantagor Sundar. Tell us about Indrajit.
He defeated Indra.
He defeated Indra in the war.
What else about him?
He had an invisible chariot by which he would shoot arrows.
Okay. Somebody else was going to say something about Indrajit.
He is also called as Meghnath.
Meghnad, master of the cloud.
He was son of Mandodari, Ravana's favorite queen.
Oh, his greatest queen. Who was more powerful, Indrajit or Ravana?
Indrajit.
Yeah, I think he never slept, just like Lakshman. He and Lakshman were a good battle, because he was the most powerful son, and Lakshman. So it's a very, very wonderful battle between Indrajit and Lakshman. He had control of so many weapons. He used so many, unfair tricks to try and fight with him. In the end, I'll tell one story here. I think we have time. The battle's not going so well. Ravana is actually beginning to see that these are not just ordinary band of monkeys. And so at one point he's worried, but Indrajit says, "Hey, don't worry. Today is what we call Amavasya, or something, dark moon day, on a certain time of the year. And today, if we do this so-and-so sacrifice, then we will be able to open the gateway to hell. It can only happen at midnight on this time of the year. And so I can do this." So Ravana probably couldn't do it. But Indrajit, because of his austerities, everything else was able to do it. So, okay, so they were going to perform this sacrifice. And Ravana was thinking, this is not necessarily such a good idea, because, all these people from hell coming onto the earth and everything else is going to be a bad scene for everybody. But his conclusion was, okay, considering who Ram is and considering who I am, it's going to be better off for me than it is for Ram. If we open up the gates to Narak, open the gates of hell. So Indrajit was going to perform the sacrifice in some condemned grove, Kunja, with evil priests and evil paraphernalia, evil offering. But the news spread over to Ram's army, and everybody was becoming terrified. Oh my God, opening up the gates of hell. And they knew there was no way they could drive back the Rakshasa army defending the grove, with their army in time. But they thought a small special forces unit, might be able to break through. So it was Hanuman, Lakshman, maybe Vibhishan, and a few of the really most powerful of the monkeys, the Vanaras, maybe a couple bears. And the whole Ram's whole army then just dumped itself on one spot. The Rakshasa army opened up a little break, and this special unit head by Lakshman was able to make it through. And it closed behind them. And they're fighting their way. It's getting more and more close to midnight, and everything's going on. And Indrajit's going swaha, swaha. Yeah. So finally, at the last moment, they're still too far away, and Indrajit is just about ready to pour the last ladle of ghee into the fire and open the doors. And Hanuman jumps over the fire and knocks the ladle out of his hand. And Indrajit knows he can't do it again like that. So Indrajit, these are all great personalities. You don't get these positions without being a great personality. 19. Lord Ramachandra is surrounded by Lakshmana monkey soldiers like Sugriva, Gandhamara, Nila Angada, Jambavan, and attacked the soldiers of Rakshasas who had all kinds of supernatural weapons. Okay, they faced them, and text 20 is very nice. Okay, thus the soldiers of Lord Ramachandra killed Ravana's soldiers, who had lost all good fortune because Ravana had been condemned by the anger of Mother Sita. So did you all think this was an important purport? Yeah. Yeah. So here's the point. It says that all these jungle soldiers were throwing rocks and using tree trunks, whereas Ravana's soldiers had all these modern weapons, everything else. Hansaduta wanted to put on a big Ramayan, a big, Mahabharata, and do it all in some kind of modern terms, with people in modern clothes. And yes, you could make it into a very intense, modern drama using the thing like that. But he couldn't think of what to do for the chariots, have jeeps in the desert with machine guns or something. So one day I was walking across the Berkeley campus, and there was Saturday, and they were putting a heating and cooling system on top of some like 5-story building. And there was a guy on the ground in a helicopter, pilot's suit with his headset and stuff, talking to the guy who was actually piloting it. With the helicopter, they were lifting it up and putting it on the roof, and a crowd of people were watching. It was really impressive. Then I was thinking, well, what about the Vietnam War? They had these Huey helicopters. So I went down to the library again, Scholars Workshop. I looked them up, and they were perfect. They may be like 3 feet wide, a little wider, and the pilot sits in the front, a little lower, and the gunner up above behind him. So it's just Arjuna, here you are. And there's Bhishma with his golden Huey helicopter, Apache helicopter, with his driver or Krishna in the front down below, and Arjuna back up behind it. On the sides, they have all kinds of weapons and counter weapons. They have laser-directed Hellfire anti-tank rockets. They come over. They stay maybe 20 meters off the surface of the jungle. They have radar to control that. So you're sitting there on the ground with your anti-helicopter weapons. They appear and disappear over your head. Something like maybe 2 seconds or something. 1001, 1002 at the most. And wherever the pilot looks, there's a prismatic sight. It makes a little colored circles. So wherever he looks, the bow cannon turns that direction. It's a machine gun, a cannon that can shoot from 5 to 500 rounds a minute. So if you walk up next to the helicopter when it's on the ground, he turns his head towards you. This cannon turns towards you too, looking at you like that. So they would drop smoke grenades into the air to create different things. They would go back and forth with these weaving patterns and fighting the ground troops and other thing else like that and so on. So you really get a taste of what it was like, with this chariot fighting and these warriors and Karna and Radeya and Konteya fighting. But the monkeys didn't have any of these things. The monkeys were throwing rocks. We had the Bhaktivedanta Institute. We were trying to preach against the scientific community, the Bhaktivedanta Institute. We were on the Berkeley campus. I was taking Damodar Mars and the devotees for a little, refreshing walk around the campus. It was so beautiful. We came to the bell tower, which Prabhupada mentioned one time in one morning walk. He was talking about it, maybe like 6 stories tall. And all it was on the top were many, many, many little bells. And they would play them at different times during the day. You could hear them all over the campus. And all there was one elevator, just went straight up and straight down. And that time it was 25 cents for the elevator, which would probably be $1 now. You know? And so we asked the guy how many people a day were going up. Okay. And we calculated, and the amount of money they made from that one bell tower on one campus of the University of California was more than the entire budget we had for 1 year for the Bhaktivedanta Institute. One little stupid touristic bell tower. Yeah. And so we were seeing how ridiculous it was for the Bhaktivedanta Institute, Srila Prabhupada's vehicle for defeating the material scientists. But this is what it says, because they are condemned by Mother Sita. They're condemned by the earth. They are raping the earth. This goes on like that. You can go into this. I mean, in a very graphic sense, the earth is being raped, extorted, terrible, what's going on, And so the earth herself condemns these scientists who do these things and give these tools. And because of that, even though we were just throwing rocks, we're giving some little preaching, we're doing our best. We can give this example from Ram Lila that it's going to work. We're going to knock down these big dudes. Okay, that's my out of Ram Lila. 21. Thereafter, when Ravana, the king of the Rakshasas, observed that his soldiers had been lost, he became extremely angry. Then he mounted his airplane, which was decorated with flowers, and proceeded to Lord Ramachandra, who sat on the effulgent chariot brought by Matali, chariot driver of Indra. So he didn't have any chariots. Demigods contributed. So, but before this, before he sent out Indrajit was killed by Lakshman. Who else did he send out? Who's the other big guy he sent out? The big gun Ravana sent out before he faced Ram directly.
Kumbhakarna.
Kumbhakarna. How many eyes did Kumbhakarna have?
2 eyes.
It says he described he was a cyclops, 1 eye. The Ramayana said he was the most horrible monster to ever walk the earth. I guess I got time here. Anyway, he was 3 brothers, Vibhishana, Ravana, Kumbhakarna. Kumbhakarna would sleep most of the year. He'd gone to sleep, so Ravana couldn't use him. So he told everybody, go wake him up, wake him up. And they were banging on him, biting him, kicking him, running elephants across his chest, pouring water in his ears. Finally, he woke up, snoring. When the elephants, I think, caused a little tickling sensation, and he kind of woke up, and they told him, hey, he was so angry when he woke up, waking up at Ramacharya ashram. He was so angry, so upset. So to calm him down, they had big vats of raw sheep, I guess with the fur and everything else, and blood and fresh, and big vats of cognac, which is distilled wine. So he brandy. So he ate all the flesh and blood, good meal, and then chopped it up and then poured down the cognac to digest it. You cannot digest meat without alcohol. Then he went off to see Ravana. What does Ravana want? And Ravana explained everything to him. And Kumbhakarna said, my dear little brother, you are a fool. You are a fool. He said, first, you kidnap the mother of the universe. Okay, that's your first thing you do, is kidnap the mother of the universe. Okay. And the second thing you do is you declare war on God. He said, this is stupid. So Ravana was a little bit depressed by this, but then Kumbhakarna was feeling like, what did I say to my kid brother? And he loved him. Jai Vijay, serve him like anything. Don't worry. Yeah, don't worry. I'll take care of it. But he had his doubts in his hearts. Every single time, Jai Vijay, Hiranyakasipu, Hiranyaksha, Ram Lakshman, and I'm Lakshman, Ravana, Kumbhakarna, Shishupal, and Dantabhakra. And last time they were with brothers. You got it. Okay. And you see the same character. One of them is just a big gross guy who's kind of not all that vicious. The other guy is intelligent, who's out to enjoy a kind of a psychological sadism also. So he went out. His brother gave him a flower garland, gave him a necklace, and then when he went out, he had a big army to go with him. And he didn't go through the gate; he just stepped over the wall. And the monkeys were terrified. These are big, powerful vanaras, gorillas. Some were so terrified they just started running away. Some just covered their eyes and urinated. It was just horrible coming out on the battlefield. So Ram asked Vibhishana, who is this? He explained. He said, probably you should tell the troops it's a big machine. You know. So somehow or other, Hanuman was rallying the troops, but Kumbhakarna was smashing everybody. He was, picking them up like raisins and just chewing on them and everything else. It's a whole story, but finally then Ram killed him. And Ram was very respectful. He was such a great hero. He died like a proper death. And then, hearing his brother's death, his favorite son's death, his big leader's death, Ravana was filled finally with rage and came out. The first day he lost, and Ram said, "Go recover." The second day he came out again, more reinforced. Excuse me. He was using very powerful weapons. And Ram said to Ravana, "You are the most abominable of the man-eaters. Indeed, you are like their stool. You represent a dog. Whereas a dog steals eatables from the kitchen in the absence of the householder. In my absence, you kidnap my wife, Sita Devi. Therefore, as Yamaraj punishes sinful men, I shall also punish you. You are most abominable, sinful, and shameless." So we got to look for the Sanskrit here. You could use these Sanskrit insults. Today, therefore, I whose attempt never fails shall punish you. Okay. Purport. Ravana was so sinful and shameful that he did not know what the results would be of kidnapping Mother Sita. Knowledge in science comes from rational empiricism, direct perception, and manipulating it with logic, especially mathematics. That's serious. That's how they know, and they respect that. Everything else is inferior to that, as far as they're concerned. But here it's saying that knowledge comes from pious activities. And Ravana didn't have sufficient pious activities to really understand, really. He was a karmi, but he couldn't become a jnani, really. Because then he would have understood what the influence of Sita was. Mandodari understood. Okay. So because of that, we see he was actually destroyed like that. After rebuking Ravana, Lord Amachandra fixed an arrow to his bow, aimed it at Ravana. And of course, this is a whole story too about what happened here. And he killed him, and he fell down dead. Here's a nice picture of Ramachandra. Oh, it's nice. That's good. Such a nice picture. But he wasn't flying on an aerial palace. He was flying on a chariot with donkeys with the faces of men. I would say whoever painted this must have seen it. Okay. Okay. Ravana had all material opulences. So we said this before. He had everything, but still he couldn't understand. He didn't have intelligence. So Prabhupada says Ravana's problem was he had more material benedictions than he could enjoy that peacefully. So this is, of course, nectar of instruction. Everything's there. Which verse? Verse number 2. Who knows the Sanskrit for verse number 2? Upadeshamrita. Nobody knows Upadeshamrita.
Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha jan sangascha lolyam cha shadabhir bhakti vinashyati.
Yeah. So Atyahara means over collecting, right? And it's a result of loilam. Because we become greedy for things, we let our mind start to develop greed. Okay. You have to catch the greed in a very young stage and not cultivate it. We see something and that's nice. Our mind's becoming involved. Oh yeah, I want to be enthusiastic. So we start to cultivate. We start to see different kinds of sweets. In Bengal, we go to a Bengali milk sweet store. We start looking. Yeah. So loilam, we start developing this hankering. Okay, then from hankering, then we start to make the endeavor, achahara prayashash. So it has to be endeavor to get this, over endeavor. So most of the purport is about this over collecting. And Bhaktisiddhanta adds it to the point of having too many mystical powers. You shouldn't have too many mystical powers. You shouldn't know too much. Knowledge for any purpose other than service is also too much. Knowledge should be just the right amount for your service. There's unlimited knowledge in Krishna consciousness, but we need to adjust it in terms of what our service is. Okay. So that was his problem. He had too many material opulences, but in the end, they were all, Krishna relieved him of actually this, which is actually a nice thing. Okay, so here at verse 24, the meter leaves Vasant Tilak. I guess it goes to Anustub, I think what it's called. I'm learning this now. Chintamani prakarasadma sukalpa vreka laksa vretesu surabira vipalayantam lakshmi sahasra sata sambramasoyomonam uvendamari purusham tamaham bhajami. So as I understand, that is Vasant Tilak, the ornament of spring. And Sarvadharmam Parityaja Mamikam Sharanam Vraja Anustub. So the meter leaves, and you should notice this, that when the meter changes, many times there's kind of a change in the pace, the view, the philosophy. So thereafter, okay, the meter change. Okay, it's all over. Thereafter, all the women whose husbands had fallen in the battle, headed by Mandodari, the wife of Ravana, came out of Lanka, crying, continuously crying. They approached the dead bodies of Ravana and the other Rakshasas. Okay, so let's look at our list of participants here. Which of the ladies can tell us about Mandodari? We'll start at the top. Hema Gopi Devidasi, what do you know about Mandodari?
I'm sorry, Maharaj, I had my hand up for something, but I think she is the chief queen of Ravan, and she chose to marry him even though she had many suitors, and she is very chaste, and she instructed Ravan to give away Sita, otherwise it will become the cause of his downfall. So she, even though she is not supposed to, like, wife is not supposed to instruct, when she saw that he's doing something wrong, she actually pleaded with him to give Sita back.
The story I heard, Ravana was traveling all over the universe in his chariot. He went down to the southern regions and picking up girls and tossing in the back of his Cadillac, Cadillac convertible, whatever. And they're all wailing and howling, So when he came to Vishvakarma, the architect of the demigods, and yes, and his most beautiful, chaste, qualified daughter was Mandodari. So Ravana wanted her. And then Vishvakarma said, no, you can't take this, my girl, whatever. She has many qualified boys. And then Mandodari ran out and said, Papa, he's going to, if you do this, he's going to kill you, and he's going to kill all my brothers, and he's going to take me anyway. So please give him in charity, and then, sir, if I become a chaste wife, then please let my family live. So that's what I heard. She made many songs, but it was voluntary, but it was voluntary for this purpose like that, for a kind of high purpose she sacrificed. And then she took it as a fair deal. You did your part of the deal? Okay, so I'll be your chaste wife then. She's we'll go ahead here. I think she'll be mentioned more now. So she came out crying, This is a whole story too about Sati, we can also discuss. Striking their breasts in affliction because their husbands had been killed by the arrows of Lakshman. They embrace their respective husbands and cry piteously, their voices appealing to everyone. O my Lord, O my Master, you epitomize trouble for others. Therefore you were called Ravana. But now you have been defeated. And we are also defeated, for without you the state of Lanka has been conquered by the enemy. To whom will it go for shelter? So everybody should know this. All Bhaktivedanta should know what the word Ravana means. Baba says it means one causes crying for others. And then we have, O greatly fortunate one, you came under the influence of lusty desires, and therefore you could not understand the influence of Mother Sita. Now, because of her curse, you have been reduced to this state, having been killed by Ramachandra. Purport, beginning with, I think one of the most important purports, Sri Dharma. And not only was Mother Sita powerful, but any woman who follows in the footsteps of Mother Sita can also become similarly powerful. There are many instances of this in Vedic literature, many. Whenever we find a description of ideal chaste women, Mother Sita is always amongst them. Mandodari, the wife of Ravana, was also very chaste. So Draupadi was one of the 5 exalted chaste women. Okay, so we looked up then, and you on the internet, if you look at Wikipedia, it gives you Panchakanya. It says they are Ahalya, Draupadi, Kunti, Tara, who's the wife of Bali, no? And Mandodari. While Draupadi and Kunti are from Mahabharata, Ahalya, Tara, and Mandodari are from Ramayana. Some traditions replace Kunti with Sita. Here's an artist's conception of the 5 Kanukumaris. You know, they all look a little interesting picture. They all look the same. Yeah. Got their hands in their hips. Yeah. So this is the point again and again, that women and men, according to our description of Varna Ashram Dharma, the kind of body you've got, the kind of tool you've got to serve in the Sankirtan movement, the kind of power you have to help to serve Srila Prabhupada is achieved by different processes and is manifest by different processes, depending if you're a child or an adult, an old person or a young person, a man or a woman, or even according whether you're a Vanara or a human being. Okay. A man must follow great personalities like Brahma and Narada, and a woman must follow the path of such ideal women as Sita, Mandodari, and Draupadi. Okay. Okay. A woman enriches herself with supernatural power. It is a moral principle, Prabhupada goes on, that one should not be influenced by lusty desires for another man's wife. This is Chandika Sloka number 10. And of course, this is, Prabhupada quotes it many times. Matrat para dareshu, para dravyeshu, lostravat, atma avat sarvabhuteshu, yahapashati sapanditaha. This is one of the best definitions of what is an educated person. Okay, so finish off. Okay, Mandodari. And then Vibhishana was given the power to rule for so much time. And there was a ceremony. Okay. Okay. And it kind of finishes off the Leela in the chapter. So at this point, any questions or comments at this point? Oh, funny, the very last, won't be able to get to it, but number 50 and 51 is all about Varna Ashram Dharma and all about Ram Raja, and Ekapatni Ratna, I think, of just taking one wife and stuff. And Prabhupada says that by introducing the Sankirtan movement, we can introduce then this Ram Raja. We can make it like Satya Yuga just by chanting Hare Krishna like that. Ekapatni Rata and that. So I fell behind a little bit. So any questions, comments here? I don't see the hands raised. There we go. Yes, okay. Please go ahead.
Maharaj, often when people want to glorify Lord Shiva as superior to Lord Vishnu, they quote this incident that Lord Ram was worshipping Shiva for victory before he crossed to Lanka. And, there is temple of Lord Shiva in Rameshwaram. And they say this is where Ram was worshipping Shiva as Ishvara.
Yeah, it's very, yeah.
Can you help us understand this?
Yeah, because Ramachandra, yad yada charate shreshtas. You can just quote from the Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, that Krishna says, yad yada charate shreshtas tatareva taro janaha. That whatever example a great man sets, all the jana, common people follow. And he says right there, even though I have no need to adopt any ritual, any karma, I do it to lead common people. And Janaka and others do the same thing. So it's very clear, Well, maybe Shiva is more superior, but at least that we're saying, and more investigation, that he was doing it as an example to show everybody that they should respect Shiva. Okay, then we have Ananta Gora Sundar's hands up. Yes, sir.
Maharaj, we heard the name, you put the name of Ahilya, but generally Ahilya we know was cursed by Gautam Rishi. I heard the name of Ansuya, so I had some confusion.
Yeah. Different lists. I know Ahalya is an interesting case. She was cursed to become a stone, right?
Yeah. Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah. And then Ram put his foot on her and she became, that's why the 2 ages became reversed. Normally it's Satya, Dwapara, Treta, but she had to stay cursed until Ram appears, so we changed the ages or something this time around, so she could get out of her curse. So I don't know more details. Prabhupada asked one devotee, "Do you like all the biographies in my purports?" And he said, "Yes, they're wonderful." And Prabhupada said, "Yes, I spent a long time in the library, So there are Puranic encyclopedias, which give cross references like that." Maharaj, Bhakti Nrsimha Swami, so my obeisances. Your hand is up, sir. Okay. Bhakti Nrsimha Maharaj.
You need to unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for Ramayana Nectar Maharaj.
It's your mercy. I'm simply
I'm your servant.
I'm a stringed instrument, and you're making me talk.
Actually, you encouraged me to study Bhakti Vaibhav. I remember I met you in Mayapur. You were pressing this point that is important for sannyasis to do Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhaktivedanta, and then eventually I decided to commit myself. Yes.
And I heard that Jayapataka Maharaj is also doing it now.
Oh, really? Yes. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for your inspiration. In text number 10, text number 10 of this chapter, it says that Lord Ramachandra followed the deer and finally killed it with sharp arrows, just as Lord Shiva killed Daksha. I was wondering, because in the 4th canto, Lord Shiva created another personality, Virabhadra. In which Leela did Lord Shiva kill Daksha himself?
Well, it may be talking in a general sense that Ram killed the deer and Daksha killed Shiva, but maybe not talking about the details of which weapons they used.
Okay.
But there should be more to it. There should be more depth. Like you're saying, there should be some more depth to that analogy.
Okay.
So I don't know why, just like Lord Shiva killed Daksha. So maybe the arrow that Ramachandra sent was actually a personified arrow, just like Shiva sent a person to kill Daksha. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, where's that? Is it Jalangi Devidasi?
Yes, Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj, in Srila Prabhupada's purport, in verse 11, it is mentioned that Maya Sita was burned. But when I went to South Indian Tirupati, I saw there is a temple, and I heard the story how Lord Vishnu actually married that Maya Sita, and he has to take loan from Kubera, and all the hundi he collected should be paid back for his debt. How can we understand this?
Oh my goodness. Is it Maya Sita? Oh yeah. So, well, of course, there are many, 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 many different stories about Ram Lila and what's happening, and if some temple maybe again they're using it to collect money. But I've heard many things, but I can't remember exactly about this particular pastime. That Vedavati, she was doing austerities. Ravana wanted to take her also. He grabbed her hair. She turned her hand into a sword and chopped her hair off. She said, "I've become contaminated. I only wanted to take Vishnu for her husband." So she burned her body up after cursing him to die at the hands of a woman. And then that's what I understand. That she became, so she was able to consort with Ram like that. But I've also heard somewhere too that she did marry Ram somehow or other in some circumstance as a representative. But I don't know any more details about that. Sometimes these pastimes take place in different yugas, different Divya yugas. It's a little different. Sometimes they aren't true. People distort things for certain purposes. So does that help at all?
Yes, thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Wow. Okay, Mayapur Institute host. Yes, sir.
Maharaj, you were mentioning about, with respect to devotee suffering, you were mentioning about it's the body that suffers. I couldn't that point, Maharaj. That was not clear. Could you explain once again?
Okay, so we had a little temple in San Francisco, which we were using for the Bhaktivedanta Institute, and in Berkeley was the big temple. It was six times as much property. So the small temple was a Gornatai temple, and just the BI people there, Rasaraj, Rajahansa, people, Bhakti Subdhammaramar, myself, 6 people. So I remember one day I was the pujari for Gornatai at noon and nobody else in the temple. Somebody had cooked a very nice offering, and I was looking at it, chutney, all these things, and I was controlling my mind, like that. Okay, but I was thinking, oh my God, after this, I'm going to eat too much. I'm going to eat too much Mahaprasadam. I know after. So, okay, this is very offensive. And I was thinking about offering it to Gornatai and how for their satisfaction. And okay, but it was. And afterwards, Prabhupada says, if you want to eat a lot, eat one thing. If you want to eat a little, eat a variety of things. So I was using all these techniques. I would wash everything very clearly, respectfully. Then I took a nice plate of a little bit of tasting of everything. But even after all these tricks and everything else, and using my mind, I still I ate too much. But it wasn't really me. I could see that I was really trying my best. I used everything, all the tricks I knew that Prabhupada had taught us not to overeat, and everything else. But still, I overate. But I it wasn't me. It was my body. My karma was carrying me along. I've got my white man, sannyas American karma. You've got your Indian, whatever, brown man karma. Ladies have their karma. Okay. And so we're trying to control with everything else. And so when the whole thing was done, my body started having some indigestion from it, suffering a little bit. But I did not identify with it. I did not suffer in any way, because I knew that it was my stupid body and I was sitting there, you stupid idiots, look at what happened. So then my body, is responding, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I won't do that again. St. Francis called his body a donkey. St. Francis said this body is a donkey that we ride through this world. Don't spend all of your time taking care of a donkey. So that's the point. Is that a little more clear?
Yeah, thank you very much, Maharaj.
I hope you've experienced it. So anybody, any final questions? I think it's time to quit. So tomorrow, I'll have to do the study guide like this, or our points are, like that. I'll try and get it off early so you can all get it. So next will be Lord Ramachandra rules the world. And then the very last chapter is very short, Kusha and everybody else. And so maybe if you want to, what I can do is, because Prabhupada said, the Bhagavatam and the previous books. So if you want to, maybe we can review some of the previous literature, and especially the area where we have a lot of, I can tell you the origin of the Nectar of Instruction and how it was written under all these circumstances and stuff, and a lot of things like that. So I can give you a Bhakti by Baba level review, Bhaktivedanta level review, I think, of Nectar of Instruction if you want to, on the last day there. Okay. So thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Jai. His Holiness Hanumatpresaka Swami Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Krishna.